I'm going to be talking about OpenClaw, which has been setting the internet and the social media world on fire for the last, say, month. I have a personal stake in it because I've been using it for probably for at least 6 weeks. I've tried different installations of it, so I'll come back to that maybe a bit later. Everyone probably thinks it's like a chatbot. It's not. It's like it's an agent that can live on your computer. It can live on a virtual server. It's basically working in the background. It can do your calendar. It can control your browser. It can join your meetings. It can write code. It can do everything a computer can do. Um, and it can do it both if you instruct it, or it can do it fully autonomous. If you search online, you will see loads of people buying Mac Minis because
Yes.
and Mac Minis are becoming like their employees and given names and stuff. So one of the ironies here is that the big winner is looking like it's Apple because they're selling more Mac Minis than ever. It was created by an Austrian developer called Peter Steinberger. He previously had his own company for around 13 years, and he sold it for, I think, I didn't disclose it, but like 100 million, something crazy. He burnt out. He took 3 years off partying, he said, seen counselors. He needed to find himself. And he came back, he said, just at the right time, not when ChatGPT launched, but maybe a year after it, because it was still pretty crappy at the start. And he began to see that, oh, this is kind of interesting. So he was playing with AI tools for the last while. He's got loads of projects up in his GitHub that he's been building. It's the most famous open source project of all time. It's got something like 200,000 stars on GitHub. I think they got like 2 million visitors in 1 week alone, probably more. Um, but what makes it different is that it actually works. And why I
Mhm.
really like it is that it's not perfect. Like, it's actually, as a piece of tech, it can be a bit crappy, a buggy, but it shows you where the future is going. And it
Mhm.
kind of like brings us forward into the future. And it's also really nice that it's done by this one person in Austria and not by a huge AI lab with billions of funding. Like,
It's definitely the whole David and Goliath thing. People love that kind of story, right?
massive. Like, and the question is, like, why didn't these companies think of it or do it or
Yeah,
release it?
yeah.
They probably did, but large companies were into loads of like issues. Legal
Mhm.
teams saying, "Hey, that's going to be a nightmare." The security team saying, "Oh, this could be used." Peter didn't care. It was just a fun
Mhm.
project for him. He was releasing
Mhm.
it, and like, it's open source, and he was like of the view like, it doesn't need to be perfect, but I want this project in my life. He
Mhm.
built it for himself, and he tested it out with some close friends, and he began to see the
Took off.
potential. Yeah, he sent it. He gave it to one of, he said, his normie friends, and
Mhm.
he said the normie friend doesn't even use ChatGPT. And when he set it up for him, installed it, suddenly his friend was like signing up for a Claude Max code, 200 per month subscription,
Mhm.
buying his own Mac Mini, and like, this was within a week of him just installing it. So he knew he was onto something. He wasn't really in this game for money, but he ended up in a bidding war between Meta and OpenAI. He
Mhm.
had Mark Zuckerberg
This is after
WhatsApping him.
spurning Claude, right? And, like, Anthropic. I
Well,
mean, that
well,
was also part of the story, right?
yeah. Well, I think Anthropic like dropped the ball here
Mhm.
because, I mean, it's an amazing tool, but I think it's more a B2B tool than a consumer tool. And Anthropic
Mhm.
is trying to move more into that business enterprise space, and
Mhm.
OpenAI is moving to the consumer space. And Anthropic sued him for calling it Claude, so he had to change the
Yeah.
name. That's why he went to Moltbot and into OpenClaw. And then Mark Zuckerberg wanted to buy it, and
Mhm.
then OpenAI wanted it. But
Mhm.
anyway, he spurned Meta and joined OpenAI, which was interesting, um, because that means now that OpenAI are going to really build their products to not to skew in that direction. So where's Anthropic going to go? Where's Meta going to go? OpenClaw, it's like an internet moment, an Apple iPhone moment. This is a new interface. People, when they're building websites, need to think about who's their audience. And their audience might not be people. It could be agents coming to their website.
Mhm.
And that changes totally how you probably design a website, how you write content, how you structure content. Because you can have the best website in the world with your great brand story and your founder story, but if you don't have the product specs or the pricing in a structured way that an agent can digest it, you're not even going to be on the recommendation list. Well, I think
Well,
that
that's
changes things in a
interesting
big way.
because, yeah, yeah, I mean, if you think about all those brands, it's like you have to hop on a sales call to, like,
Yeah.
find out the pricing. I mean, honestly, though, buy. I hate those
gone.
websites. It's just like, just tell me the fucking price so I can know
Yeah.
what I'm getting into, what I can build,
Yeah.
what I can actually do. I don't want to be jumping on sales calls. I prefer to do it like on my own time. So if it changes those things, like good riddance. I think the biggest thing that kind of stood out for me here is that it got people excited about AI in a way that was outside of just the tech bubble, which is kind of a huge
Mhm.
problem that's happening right now, right? Where it's like the fact that, Peter is able to talk about like his normie friend, getting excited to like, use Claude and use, code to like build his own thing. Like that's awesome. That's cool. Like it's getting people to like use AI in a way that isn't just like, searching for things, right? Like does
Mhm.
seem to be like this huge, differentiation between the people that use ChatGPT, kind of like a better Google search, right? And then those people that are like super in it, building new things and like, coding. And those seem to be the same startup people that were going to be coming up with ideas anyway, right? But there's
Mhm.
none of that like middle ground, right? This does seem to be more on the other side. It's still like people that have the ideas and, want to come up with something, want to build something. But at least it's like, growing the bubble a little bit more, because it's like, right now AI and like tech have this messaging problem with AI, right? You
Mhm.
have some of their founders and some, Sam coming out like it's going to change the world, it's going to do all this stuff, but then it's not really coming down to the normie audience to like see like, okay, but what's it actually doing? What benefits are there to my life, that
Yep.
should make me care about AI, especially when on the other side, you're also saying it's going to come and everyone's going to lose their job and all these industries are going to be wiped out. I do think there needs to be some sort of like education that needs to be taught, of kind of like what it means to like actually use the product, how to use it, and how it can actually, come together. Whereas like right now, it's a lot of people that are jumping in because they're interested, they have
Mhm.
the like desire and the will to like do that. Rather than like, kind of like the normies who are still, I saw somebody post that like people are still asking for like Excel help on on Instagram, right? So we need to be kind of, going after those
Yeah.
users a little bit more.
It's a broad spectrum. My friend
Mhm.
did an 8-week AI course in Dublin, and I asked him what's his thoughts on OpenClaw. He said he'd never heard of it. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that's a reflection on my friend or a reflection on the course. So,
Yeah, I
um,
mean, yeah, it's really hard for those types of courses to kind of keep up, right? It's a huge reason why I'm like,
it's
don't go
changing
to
so
school for
fast.
like
It's
marketing, right?
yeah,
Because marketing
it,
changes so frequently. Why would you be learning old like cases? Just go do your own research. It's similar to like AI, but that's kind of where we're at now. It's like you have
yeah.
to do your own research and have that own impetus yourself. So did you buy a Mac Mini?
Not yet, but it's
Not yet.
definitely on my list potentially. Like, I mean, the way I looked at it was that it's like, if you looked at Space Odyssey 2001 with HAL, and you looked
Hmm.
at the movie Her, like,
Hmm.
is bringing that to a reality, right? To
Hmm.
something useful. I mean, like, if you think about like how you book a hotel, right? You probably like have like humans, we all have biases. We
Hmm.
have nostalgia. There's a brand name we like. We want a social status. We want a certain thing, but agents don't really care about nostalgia or loyalty. They just, do what they want to do. If you remember in The Matrix, Agent Smith, his line,
Hmm.
what was it? Never send a human to do a machine's job.
Hmm.
You know, and there's a lot of jobs machines can do a lot better than humans, and I'm quite
Hmm.
happy the machines do it. Like what OpenClaw is, it's not like it abstracts away a lot of the complexity if it's set up
Hmm.
right, because you don't need to know what AI model is being used really. You don't need to know where it's going for the information if it's configured correctly. It's
Hmm.
just that it's like a super smart chat GPT that will know you and understand you. What's really different about it is that it's got a persistent memory,
Hmm.
so that it carries over knowledge from conversations. So the more you work with it, the more it gets to know you, the smarter it gets, the more nuanced it gets. But if you go into its configuration files, it's got like a soul.md file. So you can
Hmm.
define its soul. So I feel like I'm Dr. Frankenstein creating my claw with a personality that I wanted to have and behave the way I wanted to behave. You give it's got an identity file. So it's got like, say, and you have to put in your file as well, the user file. So you're telling the agent, like who you are and what soul, how you want to operate. So the experience you get when you work with it over a period of time is totally unique and it can be totally customized to you. And then you give it access to different tools. Um, and where I've seen kind of the big difference was that when like I've set it up for two instances, I set up for my friend's business. They have kind of a small, say, boutique marketing agency, and I've set it up for myself. For myself, it's nice. It feels like a toy. I don't really like need it that much. It could be useful. It could be like a second brain maybe. But for their business, it's a total game changer for them because they have like 6 to 8 people. They're overworked. They got too many clients. They're so busy. But what they're doing now is using this to systemize, document, study all the brand guidelines, study all the client documents, all the projects, manage their Trello. Because I set it up for them kind of like a remote employee. So it never gets near any sensitive information. So if you think like you just hired a remote employee, the easiest way to psychologically see that is have a Mac Mini and just say that that's your remote employee.
Mhm.
But for me, I
Mm.
set up in the cloud because I was still testing things. But you can integrate it into Slack, you integrate it into WhatsApp, you integrate it into Telegram. You give it rules of what it can and can't do. So what we did is we gave it its own Gmail account, gave it its own company signature, gave it its Gmail Drive, Google Drive access, gave it access, say, to certain shared folders, which were like, say, to know, like brand guidelines for clients. And it just makes life a lot easier for like, owners of that company to get information when they need it, check the status of a project, get files, run up new templates. It becomes like a chief of staff, a COO combined with an EA that actually doesn't really forget anything. And this is just the first instance of the technology. That's why it's exciting. So
Mhm,
that
mhm.
imagine now what someone like Peter can do if he's got the backing of OpenAI and gets gifted 20 engineers to work with him. This type of product can be pretty exceptional. Um, so it's kind of interesting to see where this is going to end up. But I feel that where we're going is that you're building for two types of worlds. You're either building and optimizing for machines or you're building or optimizing for humans. And when it comes to OpenClaw, it makes brands kind of irrelevant on one hand, but it makes brands very important on the other hand. So, for example, I was thinking today going to work, I was looking around because Dubai is a city that's very well designed, it's very structured, got main roads, and every side of the road is like these big billboards. And I've always kind of felt like billboards will never really work. I'll never buy anything off billboards. But I'm thinking, if I'm using OpenClaw and I'm not really thinking about brands that much, the only place someone can reach me is in the real world. So
Mhm.
billboards become the prompt to humans to prompt their agents to go
Mhm,
search.
mhm.
So brands will have to spend a lot more time in the real world with their products, whether that's product placement or experiential or billboards, than in the digital world. The digital world might become more for agents than humans.
I do wonder because you do have people, both sides, right? Where it's like you want people, people are wanting to have more IRL experiences. Also, it seems as if like digital worlds could become more interesting to people, where it's like a gated community where you keep out AI, where you keep out, agents, right? It's just like
Mhm.
human only, like that you get verified to get in,
Ah,
right? Kind of like we saw with like Ready Player One or No Crash, Neil Stevenson's,
no, gosh, yeah,
um, that like a lot of the tech people know, where it's like the whole idea of like going into digital spaces and being able to be there with other humans, right? So I do see that being a thing. Another thing here that this brings to mind is how much more important it is going to be to kind of like what you're saying. You have billboards, but you also have TV commercials, right? The Super Bowl ads are probably going to become more and more
yes.
like popular, right? First, it's the whole idea of a monoculture. This is one of the few times that people have to be watching the same thing at the same time, right? So then I think that's going to spill over into other sports events. So I talked about this in an essay I had where I talked about other sporting events that are going to become more and more popular, particularly when they're in the US, right? So we have the World Cup in the summer here. We also have the Olympics in LA in 2028. The Super Bowl, I think, is going to keep growing. Other sports, the World Series, March Madness, all that is going to become where companies are going to be investing in ad space because they know that they need to get people offline to think about their product
Yeah.
and their brands, right? And I think that's where like the feeling is still going to become relevant. That nostalgia, that like brand story, the how customers are using your product and love it. So I agree that like online, it's going to be a little different. Your website might not be as relevant. I mean, how relevant is it these days, right? Like, what are people going to websites for? You need to make sure that like your website is like up to date and has like everything and like your positioning and stuff. And it should, because you are going to need the agents to be able to go through that. But I think there are other aspects of like your brand story and positioning that you need to start like looking at, and what sorts of like ads can you be doing that are aside are not part of like your website per se, but like lead people to other ways to find your product.
Well, it's like what you said earlier, Apple, teaming up with Formula One, right? That's a perfect
Mhm.
example. We've seen
Right.
more and more crossover brands going into real world events, sport is like that monoculture opportunity, where people come together,
Mhm.
which is so often, right? So I think that's going to be really big. I think, and also we've already been designing like websites for bots for a long time, and a very famous bot, the Google bot, right? So
Mhm.
everyone's been optimizing their website for Google. It's just that
Mhm.
now there's going to be maybe 1,000 Googles coming that
Mhm.
are equally important to design for.